This is Erica Apathy, and I am recording my EdTech 636 presentation. So my topic I chose for this paper is incorporating technology in parent communication and parent involvement, more focused on elementary grade level. So I started becoming interested in this topic because I was in a host classroom the first semester, which the teacher tried to incorporate Blooms, which is a smartphone application focused on parent communication with the teacher, and it just really didn't work. It wasn't effective. None of the families signed up. And then I also experienced another teacher in the same school who has really effectively incorporated uh, the use of the smartphone app Remind. And so I was interested in why did this one classroom, the first classroom with the Bloom's application, why did that one not work? And why did Remind work? Was it because of the teacher's implementation or the class or the explanation of the, to get families to sign up? So that's what really sparked my interest in kind of exploring technology's use in parent involvement and family communication. So then moving on to my research question. So the research question is, does technology, including smartphone applications like Remind, increase the success of parent involvement increase the success of parent and teacher communication, and what effect does technology have on parent involvement in their child's education? So for the literature for this paper, the 7 articles were selected, and the main ideas they focus on were A, they examined the way technology affects parent involvement in schools, and B, they explored the effect technology has on parent to teacher communication. All articles were published in professional journals related to the field of education and published between 1993 and 2013. So to find these articles, I searched 2 databases. I used Google Scholar and the United States Department of Education website, and I used the search term technology and parent involvement and communication and technology. So moving on to the emergent themes. So a number of emergent themes came from this literature. And it is widely expressed, and in many of the articles I found a similar statement that parents who monitor their students' schoolwork and daily activities, communicate frequently with teachers, and help develop their child's plans for education for after high school are more likely to graduate from high school and pursue post-secondary education. Then this first article discussed how technology can be used to effectively increase parent involvement, whether that be, actually parents coming into schools to volunteer, or that could also be parents being involved in their child's schooling at the home, like in homework, or checking in to see how their day was, or just listening to how the students' time in their classroom went. So this article also discussed how technology can be an effective tool to increase parent involvement because it allows them to be more involved, or more involved, I guess, to what is actually happening in their child's classroom. Most students' families are not in the classroom every day, all day, while there's instruction, and so they're not aware of what's all happening. And so technology can be a really effective use of kind of bridging that gap between the teachers who are teaching these children countless hours a day and then what's going on at home. So as discussed earlier, it has been shown, and it was very apparent in many of these articles, that parents who are involved in their children's education, or students who have parents who are involved, perform better in school. And it has a positive effect on both their performance in elementary and secondary level education. So according to Child Trends, students whose parents are involved in their schools tend to have fewer behavior problems and better academic performance. And then I thought this statement was very interesting, so I will just read it. This may be a result of students who have involved parents. They may be quicker to notice their child falling behind and reach out to the schools for additional support. They might also be more responsive and follow through at homes to create any behavioral problems and change any behavioral problems that students may be exhibiting. It is also important that schools help parents become involved. So schools must have opportunities for families to be involved, including parent-teacher meetings, school activities, and the teachers also need to be fully trained in ways to communicate with families. In an article that is quoted here, both teachers and parents think that family involvement in the schools is important and can have positive effects on student learning. While this is a really good thing in theory, many times there are barriers that prevent parent involvement. And these can include the lack of time and energy, economic resources, a lack of knowledge, a feeling of incompetence on part of the parent, a failure to understand the parent's role, or a long history of negative interactions with schools. Teachers can kind of prevent some of these barriers from existing with their own classrooms by being properly trained, but some of the barriers will persist if the teachers are not properly trained, practice poor reporting, or are hostile towards parents. So then I also looked at some of the legislation. So in 2001, the No Child Left Behind Act was enacted, which was the United States government. They provided and outlined 4 principles to serve as frameworks through which families, educators, and communities can work together to improve teaching and learning. So the principles stressed accountability between schools, educational services for low-performing students. They developed local parent involvement plans and built parents' ability to use effective practices to improve their own child's education. So then, speaking from a teacher's standpoint, it is key that teachers understand and realize that they are the key and the most important factor in communicating with their students' families. They need to expand their knowledge of effective modes of communication, and they need to be able to try different ones. So if something doesn't work, they need to be willing to say, oh, why didn't this work? And they need to be able to look at it with an open mind and try something else and not be afraid to take that risk. So technology improves, including computers and broadbands, can effectively enhance communication between the home and school, engage families in learning with their child, inform parents about students' academic progress and attendance, promote beneficial educational practices, enable teachers to be better engaged, to better engage parents in school activities, and connect families to resources that can improve their life prospects. So then returning kind of to the idea of how parents can facilitate the communication, some of the ideas that were outlined in an article written by Ellen Lust was hotlines and helplines, automated calling systems, voicemail and voice messaging systems, email, cable channels, and teleconferencing. So I did find that these might have been very useful, but it seems like there's such a variety and a varied acceptance of these ideas that having an application like Remind or Blooms, which kind of combines all of those together, would be really useful and effective. And then with the high percentage of individuals owning cell phones, just in using those, that the technology that is readily available and people understand and mostly know how to use smartphones would be a very effective tool to facilitate the communication with technology. So, and then I just talked a little bit about what exactly Remind does. It can send out, it has features like mass texting. It can provide links to parents to have materials to learn what their child is covering in class, parent involvement sign up. And then just a brief little statistic about Remind. It's a free texting application that helps teachers, students, and parents communicate quickly and effectively with over 2.5 million registered teachers. So for the data collection part of this assignment, I created a survey, and the survey was sent out to a first grade class, and I didn't get too many results or completed surveys from that. So I turned to Facebook, where I have lots of different Facebook groups with and know many people who have young children who are in elementary school. So I used that and I sent that out to families, and I was able to get 36 responses in about 2 weeks. So then the qualitative data was based on the survey. So below is the survey. The survey kind of focused on, it consisted of 26 questions and it was anonymous. I'm not going to read all the questions, but it kind of focused on um, how valuable you believe different types of family involvement, if you agree or disagree with different barriers that might exist in a child's um, family involvement in their education, and then what is your access to technology, including smartphones and computers, preferred method of communication, and then a little bit about the Remind app, and then more technology, so Twitter and Facebook, more on Remind, and then some demographics, so what is their age, gender, marital status, highest level of education, primary language, employment status, income, and how many children live in the home. So then moving down to data analysis. So again, the data came from 36 responses to a survey created using Google Forms. The respondents were from Sitka and all over the United States. And it was also sent to classrooms, families of students in a first grade class at Fair Enough Elementary School. So the results were very interesting. So these ones I will talk a little bit about more in depth. So how involved are you in your child's education? So I was not shocked that most of them were very involved. And then question 2 was focused on what type of family involvement in school is most important to you. So the most important one was asking your child about his or her day when they got home, and then reading with your child at home. And then question 3 was how valuable each type of family involvement is to you. So some of the highest ones were attending open house. I guess I was not as shocked with that answer because to me, that makes sense because it is like the first step in, the families meeting the teacher and that the teacher offering and exploring the idea of which technology piece they want to use to have communication. So question 4 focused on barriers. And the one thing I did find interesting was that I did have some responses that a barrier was because they didn't speak or understand English, and that was something I wasn't expecting. All the other ones I kind of understood coming from my personal background. I kind of understand, that I don't have time, that I can't always go in. And I also was kind of shocked and about that it said I am not comfortable talking to my child's teacher, that even one person responded strongly agree. That I found appalling, that's a parent would feel that way towards their teacher. And I feel like without knowing that teacher's situation, I feel like that teacher is falling behind and something is missing, that parent feels that way. So then how do you feel like your child has done in elementary school? The majority said, average to very good. And then question 6, do you have access to a computer? And now almost 92% said they did. And then again, same percentage with access to a smartphone or tablet. And then I thought this was interesting. So the majority of people, respondents to the survey, said that they preferred emailing with their parent or with their teachers, with their student's teacher. And then the second was Remind or other smartphone applications. So then again, focus on technology. So majority of respondents do own a cell phone. And about almost 50-50 said that their teacher has provided them with their personal cell phone number. And then this question 11 was really focused on those who do use the Remind app, and so has their teacher utilized all of the aspects of the Remind app. Some teachers just stuck on using it just for, oh, hey, we have a field trip, don't forget your raincoat, and don't use it to the full potential. So that question 11 was focused on that. Question 12 was, have you used email? And the majority said yes. And then what was that email regarding? And it was predominantly academics, followed by behavior. So then again, for question 14 and 15, it was focused on technology and other more social media that families might be interested in using. Question 16, and then this is just has your teacher sent home information about Remind? And then are you signed up? Question 17. And then I thought this was really interesting because question 18, because the majority of respondents and answers to this question were that they were not aware that Remind is a free smartphone application, and I don't know if that stems from just not being aware that the app even exists, or maybe is it that their child's teacher isn't using it. So then I focused on, for 19, I focused on age. So the majority of the respondents were under 35, majority female. And the marital status question, this question to me was very interesting because I am a single mother, and so I wanted to see, I know for me as the sole provider for my family, is that a barrier to other people that they also aren't able to, take off work on a Tuesday at 10 to go to their child's field trip because they're working, and it's not that they don't want to, it's just that they can't take that time off. And it does appear that the majority of the respondents are married. Then the next question focused on the higher levels of education, so looking at does that have an effect on involvement. And then question 23 was primarily all respondents primarily spoke English, and majority were employed full-time. About half and half were between $0 and $50,000 and $50,001 and $100,000 level income, and the majority had 2 children living in the household. So then shifting here down to the conclusion. So the goal of this research was to learn more about incorporating technology like smartphone applications to increase parent communication and what effect it has on parent involvement. And then with the abundance of technology available, it is important to find a mode that works best for each individual class. With the vast amount of different options, teachers may need to explore different options before finding the one that works best for that particular class. It appears that the families place a great value on the effectiveness of communication, so each teacher needs to just strive to create and maintain an open line of communication with each of their students' families. After concluding this research, it appears that a large majority of families wish they could be more involved, and while the biggest barrier to a high level of parent involvement is not enough time or other commitments. And studies have shown that children succeed more in school if their families are involved and invested in their education. As a future classroom teacher, I am excited to implement Remind or another smartphone application to allow my students' families to communicate with me and stay involved in their child's education. Scrolling down here are my works cited, and that concludes my presentation of my 636 action research paper. Thank you.